morning. I'm sorry for this noise. It's really... Normally Smarano is so quiet. This year, really, during the academy, they decided to work in the streets. And well, today we can play the other two composers in program, Claudio Merulo, again Venice, second half of the 16th century, and Giovanni Maria Trabaci, Naples, a composer who lived between the end of 16th century and the early 17th century. Both very important composers. But first, what's your name, please? Maria, Maria from St. Petersburg, would like to play Je pense Angré, the beautiful canzona I already played yesterday. It's really a masterpiece. It's a very fascinating piece. Both for the harmonies, of course the harmonies are by Clemens Nonpapa, the composer of the chanson, but both harmonies and the diminutions composed by Andrea Gabrieli make really a jewel. So please, Maria, if you like. Flauto solo. very nice, really very, very good. My compliments for the easy early fingering, very fluent. Please mind that pause. You never, well, what is written is good to respect. She played a longer alto part than written. It's just, I warn you. Again, I think the relation with the text, both the meaning of the text, but also the space of the words in the original chanson should be respected, and I think make our interpretation even easier to listen. I think the danger in this music is to play mechanically. It's not your case, but of course I want to warn you to avoid a certain side of playing this music that maybe is not the most interesting. So, for instance, there is a special chord in this music, the second part of this canzone, when here, oh dure mort, it says, oh dure mort, oh hard death. And so even here to play a little bit more, oh dure mort. E flat major, it's quite surprise, I think, even for us. No? It's not dissonant, but it's just a special harm. Oh, dure mort, dure mort, dure mort. I think if we know the canzona, we would play this by Andrea Gabrieli differently. So it's very important to know the canzona. Perhaps if you want really to play well this piece, I suggest you to play the canzona several times to know the piece very well, and then it will be even nicer to play the version by Andrea Gabrieli, because he will recognize the piece of chanson behind Andrea Gabrieli and Andrea Gabrieli work over the chanson. So I think you can work on it, and even some breaths of the four voices all together could be enhanced a little bit more, like here at the end of some cadence. And follow the long lines, I think, more than to make a balance. Sometimes a little rubato, of course, in the diminuzioni, but I think the part of the music which leads really is the longer figuration, which is the vocal line. So if you keep that in mind, it will be have a very good balance between the longer line and the smaller decorations. But very, very, very good. Thank you. So we come to Claudio Merulo, such a great organist and composer at the time. He really received the greatest honors in his life, especially at the end. Even at his funeral was celebrated like a great nobleman, and the Duke of Parma and Piacenza, the Farnese, was he organized the funeral of Claudio Merulo, and with all the honors, of course. He was born not in Venice. We associate Claudio Merulo with Venice very much because he has been organist in San Marco for almost 30 years. And he worked in Venice, he lived in Venice. But he came from a little town near Parma, Correggio. In fact, he was famous as Claudio da Correggio. His name was Merlotti. Then, during his career, he changed in a kind of a Latinization of the name, Merulo, like the bird. It's a bird, the name of a bird, Merulo. The black with the yellow mouth. And yes, I wanted to tell you just some notices about his life because he's quite special. In fact, he had many, many interests. He was even an father. In fact, we have a small positive organ now in the Conservatory of Parma, which was built by Claudio Merulo himself, and for himself, he was owned by him, and when he was close to die, he left the organ to a small church near his home in Parma, where the organ was kept till the 20th century. In fact, he worked together with Vincenzo Colombi, who was a major organ builder in Venice. And we know that even in San Marco, he added a stop of flute to one of the two organs, probably to play the canzonas. Then when he settled quite young in Venice in the late 50s of the 16th century, and he opened a workshop for printing music. As I told you yesterday, Venice was the most important center of musical print in the world. So also he found this job quite fruitful, but he made important editions, mostly of madrigals, and even he has been considered as one of the first musicologists or music editors, because he republished the madrigals by Philippe Verdelot, originally printed in the 1530s. But this work was so in fashion at the time that was reprinted several times, but with many mistakes. And he reprinted this work, 2 books of madrigals, and writing in the foreword that he tried his best to restore the original intention of the composer. So, for the time, it's quite a unique mentality. And then, of course, he was organist in San Marco in Venice, in the, we can call the golden age of the organ in Venice. In fact, in San Marco, there were both Claudio Merulo and Andrea Gabrieli. Then he was also owner of terre, of grounds. He owned big land, how to say? Do you understand? Estates, yes. He cultivated the ground near Padua, so not common for a musician. But then he wanted, his dream was to go back to his homeland, Parma, where there was an important duchy held by the famous family Farnese. They were great patrons of arts. And in fact, in the 80s, he was called by the Duke Farnese and become organist of the court and organist of the church, both in the cathedral and Chiesa della Steccata. Now, I think it's enough to understand the particular character. Of course, he published many masses and madrigals that are not enough known, but is really top-level music, especially for the contrapoint. And he left at the end of his career and life the publication of his now famous toccatas in 2 books. They were printed in Rome because in Rome a printer of Flemish origins, Simone Verovio, started to print music engraved in copper plates. That technique that was used later by Frescobaldi, for instance, but there were many other prints, not even only keyboard music, in Rome at that time. For instance, Luzzasco-Luzzaschi in 1601 printed a choice of 12 madrigals originally written for the Concerto delle Dame in Ferrara. We heard Aura Soave performed by Silvia the first evening in a score but printed in copper. In fact, they were printed both books of toccatas in a beautiful edition in Rome. Okay, we can listen some music and from the canzoni. He printed original 1 book of canzoni in intavolatura in Venice, and then the nephew, very, very young, apparently he was 15, perhaps there was somebody else behind him, I don't know, Giacinto Merulo, signed the prints of the 2nd and 3rd book of canzoni by Claudio Merulo. And they are really beautiful music, and they are all published in this complete edition of Claudio Merulo Canzoni d'Intavolatura, all the 3 books. Again, in the 2nd book are intabulations, with diminutions, of course, of his own canzonas that we find in the famous manuscript in Verona. Canzonas for 4 instruments on 4 separate books. But we have also, especially in the 3rd book, famous French chansons. At the end, we have also examples of French chansons, like the famous Suzanne un jour by Orlando Di Lasso, that was also diminished by Andrea Gabrieli. I recommend you this music strongly because it's really very elegant, beautiful, and inspired. So, who prepared some canzonas by Claudio Merulo? You and you? Okay, want to start? You can start. I think you made the photocopies for everyone. Yes. It's true. L'Albergata. She's going to play l'Albergata. Just a moment, I want to find if there is the original 4-part canzona of this piece. No, we don't have the 4-part. Good, good, thank you.